Hi, my name is Mark Scolnick, and I have the privilege of being District Governor for 2021 for District 6890, which is in Central Florida. And since 1973, I have devoted part of my life to the Rotary Foundation. In 1979, we took on polio, and I've been involved in that effort as well. Today, I want to talk to you about the relationship between polio and COVID-19. I want to tell you why I think it's important to continue our work towards eradicating polio. It's a great time for Rotary. The African continent has been declared free of the wild polio virus. We have done a great job, but our job isn't over. Why should we care? Because in Afghanistan and Pakistan, the last two countries that have the wild polio virus, there are children there that will get the disease, and like COVID, they won't show the symptoms. And they can infect another child that doesn't show the symptoms. And because they transverse those borders every day, 50,000 people come and go, and they're so porous, unlike our borders. Very porous. So if a child came here that had polio and didn't know it and didn't show the symptoms, they could infect our children in Florida. How could that be? Well, we have over 1 million children in Florida who haven't been vaccinated against polio. Over 1 million children in Florida haven't been vaccinated against polio. They could easily, overnight, get polio. So, here's what could happen, just like it happened in the 1950s. In the 1950s, the polio epidemic closed movies, closed swimming pools, and schools. People stayed indoors. They were petrified to be with others. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound like what we're going through with COVID? With polio, though, our most precious ones, our children, are at risk. It is only a plane ride away. The history of polio and Rotary started in 1979 with a program aimed at immunizing 6 million children in the Philippines. We went from 125 countries down to 2. We have saved over 18 million people from this scourge. We can finish the job. I still remember getting the polio shot when I was in elementary school in the 50s. They just lined up, the Board of Health came in, they lined us up. There were no forms for my parents to sign. There were no questions. We all got it. We need to vaccinate all the children. Now, currently we have Rotarians and non-Rotarians that are polio survivors. Those polio survivors, some of which are our members, have tremendous pain each day. Each day. They cannot go a day without pain. There's only 26 places in the United States that they can go and get treated. And some of the doctors that treat them are polio survivors themselves. So with COVID, we could have some of the same problems later on. What a shame. We still have to vaccinate 400 million children to rid ourselves of this terrible disease. We must also keep other countries polio-free until we're certain that it won't resurface. Up to 60 high-risk countries still operate large-scale immunization campaigns to protect the children against polio. We continue to have surveillance in 77 countries. This is part of the infrastructure we have built. This infrastructure has been used for other things. Short time ago, there was an Ebola breakout in Africa. And the polio workers left their computers, their office, and the Ebola people came in. They used the computers to pinpoint where the outbreaks are and send in teams of public health people to eradicate it. So almost overnight, we stopped Ebola. What a great thing for Rotary. So if polio isn't eradicated in 10 years, as many as 200,000 children could be paralyzed by it each year. A polio-free world will save the global economy 40 to 50 billion in healthcare costs within the next 20 years. And if every club gave a minimum of $1,500, we can meet our obligation. Oh, obligation. Yes, we have an obligation. And let me tell you about that obligation and a little story that happened to me. A Rotary friend of mine, Mike McGovern, happens to be the chairman of the Polio Eradication Committee worldwide. When I was January at District Governor training in California, I had lunch with Mike. And I said, you know, the Rotary year 2018 was finishing, and there were these emails asking if there was DDF and other money for the polio effort. And I saw that we did make our 50 million. In a minute, I'll tell you why that's so important. I said, Mike, how did that happen? And he said that we collected 51,100,000. Now on 50 million, $1.1 million isn't a great margin. It is not a great margin. So we did that by one of our Rotarians who happened to pass away in Pennsylvania. He was a retired veterinarian, and he had given sums of money to polio and the foundation. But when he passed, he had in his will that polio would receive a sum of money, and other charities locally would. But he had in his will the remainder, everything left would go to polio. Well, that remainder in his gifts totaled $1.1 million, and that put us over so we could make our commitment. We have a written commitment, and our commitment is that we should tell the Gates Foundation, probably the end of August, that we have our 50 million good to go, because they need to get in January their 100 million. 2 for 1. What a deal. I want to thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll all end polio together.